Hey everybody, KC here. So Kroger has gotten a lot of pushback on its decision to close four stores, two in Long Beach, two in Seattle, because of hazard pay legislation mandating that they pay their employees in all their stores in those communities, $4 more per hour, for the period of the pandemic. Basically, government has said these are essential employees, you got to pay them more. From the time this started, I said, this is bad public policy. You can't just single out one kind of retailer, and especially one kind of retailer of a certain size, and basically throw that kind of economic burden on them. It's up to retailers to decide how much they want to pay over whatever wage they're paying those people to begin with. Most retailers have done a really good job. They've paid bonuses, they've paid hourly increases. Listen, I have no problem with minimum wage as a concept. Probably the minimum wage ought to be higher. I think going to 15, probably whatever decisions they make ought to be more nuanced than just making it national. But I have a real problem with the idea of isolating the supermarket industry. And listen, there may be a lot of you out there that are kind of looking around saying, hey, I hope they don't do this in my town. And there may be a number of towns where they're going to take that on based on the fact that, again, Seattle, Long Beach did it. Although Kroger's decision to close stores in both those areas because they were, not making any money anyway, and this made them completely untenable, well, that may slow down the momentum of different kinds of legislation like that. However, I have to say, as bad as that public policy strikes me as being, Seattle's got another one that they're considering that I think is absolutely worse. Because in fact, they are considering in Seattle a proposal that would basically say certain kinds of misdemeanors will not be prosecuted. One of those kinds of misdemeanors happens to be shoplifting. So if in Seattle you shoplift and they say, why'd you do it? And you say, well, I had to, they're not going to prosecute. Now listen, I don't think we want to live in a Les Miserables world where, for stealing a loaf of bread to feed your starving family, you're necessarily going to go to jail for a long period of time. And in fact, the city attorney said no city prosecutor is interested in sending an impoverished new parent to jail for stealing baby food. Most retailers I know wouldn't want to do that. They would try and, work with authorities and work with the person to find a more a more just solution than just throw them in jail. But I do think that the idea that you would look at people and say, hey, listen, for this kind of crime, we're not going to prosecute. I mean, that is just going to just say, people are going to come in, they're going to steal stuff, they're going to say I need to, they're not going to prosecute, they're going to come back and do it over and over and over and over. And I don't know how a city like Seattle, where the downtown has already been hammered by the pandemic in terms of stores and restaurants and things like that, how are they going to get anybody to come back? How are they going to get people to come back to the downtown if they have legislation like this? Listen, I believe the government can't always look out for the best interests of business. I think government as a proposition has to look out for everybody's interests. They have to be fair to everybody. Sometimes you look out for business, sometimes you look out for people, and business is not necessarily going to like the decisions you make. But this solution, this is nuts. It's not good for the city, it's not good for the retailers, and I can't imagine that a city is going to be uplifted by the fact that standards are going to be so significantly lowered. I have a big problem with the whole notion of standards, right? I think we're always lowering standards in terms of saying, okay, well, we don't, organic food doesn't have to be 100% organic. Or apparently, if you steal but you need to, that's okay. I really think we have to have standards. And I think, but industry may have a problem if legislation like what they're considering in Seattle gets any kind of momentum. I think this is the kind of legislation that gives liberals a bad name. Anyway, that's what's on my mind this morning. And as always, I want to hear what's on your mind.